Welcome to the Breakout podcast. My name is Damon Nichols, and this is a podcast where we talk with people that have been there, done that. They've gone down some rough roads. They've seen some highs, seen some lows, and today we've got a special guest. He is a father of two autistic sons. He's also a former corporate executive of high tech companies. He's very inspirational leader. He's a Christian entrepreneur, and he's also a recovering addict and alcoholic. We've met just recently through a program that we're working with Nick Santos Tonaso, and we share a lot of the same similarities. And I know just after talking to Tarek for the last couple of days that we're on the same path, and our goal is to help as many people as we can and try to maybe prevent somebody from going down the same roads we have, or maybe give some answers to people that have, they're looking for answers, that are trying to find their way through. And basically this podcast is kind of a blueprint for, finding your way to get clean and sober and becoming successful. But I want to welcome Tarek Chaudhary. Sorry, I didn't mean to get that wrong. So
it's a tough one, David. Don't worry, man. You got it right eventually. Thanks for having me, brother. I really appreciate it. All
right, man. Good to see you, man. We've had some great conversation, and you're very inspirational. And I know the first time that I talked to you, it was just like, wow, this guy's got a lot to offer, man. I want to get him on. I want to hear his story. I want to see what this guy's about, because I know you've experienced things in your life, and you've been in places that most people can't even imagine. You've been on top, but you've also been at the bottom. So kind of give us a little bit about your background, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, brother. Just first, I want to say thank you. And when you and I connected, like truly connected, and shared who we were and what we were about, I felt immediately called to work together, collaborate together, because we're on the same path, man. And that's the beauty of this world, and the beauty of God's hand. He brings people together for a reason. So I greatly appreciate this opportunity, brother. And I hope we definitely help some people. A little bit of my background, man. So born in DC, grew up in Northern Virginia, about 10 minutes outside of the city. Immigrant family. I'm a first-generation American. My mom is Armenian. She came from Jordan. Her family fled the genocide in Armenia, and then they re-immigrated to Jerusalem, which at that time was Palestine, and then the war there broke out. They had to leave again, and ended up in Amman, Jordan. My dad came here from Pakistan, and so they were living the American dream in the late 60s and early 70s. They fell in love, and a Christian, a Catholic, and a Muslim, a devout Catholic mother, a strict Muslim father, but love overpowered. And I'll tell you this, though, my exposure to God growing up was all about religion, religious rituals and rules. And it was a constant battle and fight, and it turned me away from the concept of a loving God from a very young age. And I say that to you now, brother, because that played the largest role for every choice I made for the rest of my life. And long story short, man, I witnessed some things as a child. I went through some things. I experienced some things. But let me say this. Because of having God in my life, the story I can say today, first and foremost, is this. My mother and my father did their absolute best. They sacrificed everything that they could to raise their family, to bring love into the home. My parents endured hell on earth in their lives. They came here for a fresh start, but they brought that hell with them. Back then, people didn't work on themselves, especially men, especially Muslim men. You man up and you do it. Otherwise, what worth do you have? And my mom, what she experienced with her family, man, and how she brought her entire family here and how she worked so hard. And she was the American dream. And they loved each other so much, but they were unable to communicate, brother. Their differences with God, their resentments, their angers, their frustrations. They loved each other with all of their heart, but they could not get over what was inside of them. And that spilled over into the family life exponentially.
So how was it growing up with them? Did they, were they both there for you? Did they give you all of the things like what a so-called, kind of perfect family would do? Were they, were they basically there for you the whole time growing up?
I'm really glad you asked me that question, brother, because if you asked me this question a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I would have given you a very different answer than what I'm going to give you right now. And I say that because everything is about perception. Which part of you are you going to let take over? And a year ago, I would have told you that I had about the worst imaginable childhood any human being could ever imagine. I witnessed violence. I was emotionally beaten. I was paralyzed in fear. On the flip side of that, I had two parents who sacrificed everything. I had two parents who did their best to give a love that they were never given, to give a life that they were never given, to give opportunities that they were never given. And they did the best they could, right? The second perspective is one of gratitude. The first perspective, which I held on to for so long in my life, was victimization, right? I held on to the pain. Instead of looking for the light, I grasped onto the dark. The pain felt better than the potential hardships in the breakthrough of the light. So at this time, who I am today, because of everything that I experienced in my life, I'm a man of exponential gratitude. I'm grateful for every bit of it. Was it hard, man? Was it brutal as a child? Did it take me longer in life to develop into a man versus being led by the traumatized child inside of me? That part, the first part my mind created, the angry teenager, the second part my mind created, those were the two primary parts that would show up in any aspect of my life where it was a fight, flight, or freeze situation, right? I never gave myself the opportunity to break free from those parts and personas.
Right.
So, look, I had food on the table. I had a roof over my head. All right. I also was told that I was a good for nothing piece of shit, that no one would ever love me, that I was a bum. No matter what I did was never good enough. The same person who would say that to me, if I got hurt, that man would have killed anybody in his path to be at my side. He loved me how he knew how to love me. I couldn't have said that. I couldn't have said that to you 5 years. I couldn't have said that to you 2 years ago.
Right.
The gratitude I have for my father, the empathy I have for my father, to understand his pain, to consume his pain and put myself in his shoes. Yeah. And he never left. He never abandoned me. He never left. He lived in pain his whole life. He suffered his whole life. And that's what love is, man. You think about what this man did for us, the greatest suffering of all time, because he loved us. My dad did what he could with what he had, man. And to learn forgiveness of others, that's when you start to forgive yourself. When you start to forgive yourself, man, that's a breakthrough.
So at what point in your childhood did you turn to drugs and alcohol? Because obviously you felt, you didn't feel worth, you felt like a piece of shit. You felt like whatever. And I'm sure you probably were angry and ready to fight and just, live that life of, resentment and anger. So when did you start turning to, other things, drugs, alcohol?
Great question. And again, the answer I'm going to give you is very different than what I would have given you prior to me doing any deep, deep work. I originally used drugs and alcohol not to consume, but to leverage, because I constantly searched for my place in the world to fit in. I constantly searched to receive some form of love that I just never felt at that time. And so I had a situation where my family bought a gas station in Anacostia, DC in 1991, at which time it was the murder capital of the world. And I started working there when I was 11 or 12. And you could get access to anything you wanted there, anything. And so very quickly I realized that people in my school were super into alcohol and drugs. So I was like, oh, well, if I can provide that to them, then maybe they'll accept me. And so I started getting it from that area and stealing cigarettes for my own family, stealing money from the cash register, going to the liquor store and buying booze when I'm 12 years old, getting weed from somebody coming up to get gas. And I used it to fit in.
Yeah, self-worth issues.
And then 100%, man, I was seeking love in any way that I could find it. Acceptance. And that's not love, man. That's manipulation. That's saying, hey, look at me. I have something to give you. Will you accept me in return? You're not accepting me. You're using me. I'm willingly let you use me. And I'm using you. And it wasn't until I was 13 where I started doing it myself. It was weed first. I think I was 14 the first time I got drunk. And I don't think you can see it, but the first time I got drunk, I split my eye wide open. Like you could see the eyeball. There's blood everywhere. And you would think maybe that was a message like, this isn't for you. Because when that sensation flowed through me and I felt that warmth and that looseness and I let go of all that fear that was inside of me for so long, it was like instant, man, instant. And I have a disease of more everything. And I would drink more than everyone when I drank. By the time I was, and for some reason, man, I always remember looking at all my friends and being like, well, I'm not getting into those hard drugs. Like I'll smoke weed and drink.
Yeah,
But they're coming to school high on coke, on acid, like at school. And I'm like, no shot. Well, by the time I'm 17, I get introduced to ecstasy and game over.
You had to stand out though, right?
What's that?
You had to stand out. You had to do it bigger. You had to do it better.
Well, yeah, 100%, man. I had to finally, like, you're absolutely right. I wanted to make sure that I was seen, right? And how else could I be seen without being a drunken fool? I want to be a topic of conversation. I wanted to be the fun guy. I want to be the guy everyone went to do fun stuff. And ecstasy came around when I was 17. And I think I probably did ecstasy 3 to 4 times a week, at least, till I was like 20. Started getting into Special K. Then came meth when I was like 21. And then when I was 22, oddly enough, I did coke for the first time ever. And that's where the devil got his foothold on me, cocaine.
Bad one.
And that was it, man. It was the moment I did coke, like it took my soul. And it did. By the time I was 23, I knew not even 23, probably 22, 23. I knew I had a real problem, man, because my entire life revolved around drinking and drugging 6 days a week. Like, and me and all my friends are trying to figure out ways to steal from the places we work so that we can fund our weekends, like getting creative as possible. I'm stealing from my family's business prior to that, and it was in that day and age, man, when everyone else around you is doing it, it doesn't feel wrong.
Right.
Well, everyone else is doing it. I always did a little bit more. Me and my best friend would do a little bit more than everybody else. But I'm the one who's stealing. Not everyone was stealing. I'm the one who was doing whatever it took to make sure we had whatever we needed, because that was my identity. I'll make it happen. I'm your guy. right? That's how I'm of value to you. I want to make sure I'm always of value to you. Otherwise, I'm worthless to you. I have to have material value to be useful to you. And I mean,
So with that, I know that you became very successful. So how did that how did that look? Where did you go from being all jacked up to becoming successful in the tech industry? Were you still high? Did you just kind of take that with you, or did you get clean?
no, I got clean, brother.
Okay. So
There's,
how did
there's,
that happen? What happened there for you to get clean the first time?
well, the first time I tried to get clean, I enlisted in the Army. The day I graduated basic training and was allowed to leave, I got arrested on alcohol and gun-related charges. And by the time I ended up getting, I was hurt in training, and it was bad enough that I got forced retired, honorable medical discharge. And that's the first time in my life I ever applied myself to anything. And I say that for a reason, because it's the first time I tried. I gave my will and my might and everything that was inside of me that I never applied to anything other than drinking and drugging. And it got ripped away from me. And I felt an overwhelming amount of shame and worthlessness like I had never before. So when I came home, it was off to the races, man. Off to the races. I was completely lost. Fast forward about 3 years later, my dad got really sick. Overnight, he went from walking, talking, eating to none of it. He had rapid onset dementia. He couldn't walk, talk, eat, use the bathroom. My father passed away in my arms.
Okay.
And that was, I'm glad you asked that question, because I'll just jump right to there. And at that point, I made it into the tech industry. I was in a startup, and I was pretty good at my job, man. But the most important thing was partying. So I went out 6-7 days a week. I'd pull into the office around 5 a.m., sleep for about an hour, go wash my armpits and brush my teeth in the bathroom downstairs, and then work from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and repeat that cycle. But while that was all happening, that's my dad was dying, and my brother had a massive brain aneurysm. So he was in the neuro ICU. And then my dad was in the ICU, same hospital. And I was just, I just didn't know what to do, man. And, you know, when my dad was dying, bro, and I'm literally at home on hospice in his last days, it was so bad that every time I gave him morphine, I would take 3 times as much as I gave him. I couldn't cope. And he died in my arms, and it was not just mine, man. My mom, my sister, my brother just got out of the hospital. He didn't even know what was going on, man. It was a defining moment in my life, dude. And for the 9 months after that, I spiraled into oblivion, just suffering from pain and grief and loss, never having the relationship I wanted with my dad, never having made him proud, never having earned his respect, never having him look at me and say, I am so proud of you. I love you so much. The one and only time he was ever able to speak to me while he had dementia, when he was at the hospital, it was 6 days before he died. And I was sitting in bed with him, and I was bawling my eyes out, and I was like, I love you, Dad. And with all the might that man had, he found a way to muster, I love you. Mm. And it's the only time I heard his voice in any words, and I knew he was still in there, and I knew he meant it, man. And I just felt so ashamed that I just let everybody down and myself. And I lived it, man. I believed all those words I was told as a kid. You're a good for nothing bum. What woman's ever gonna love you? You know? And 9 months after he died, I was, like I said, out of control. And I collapsed in front of his grave and I started punching his tombstone. Why'd you only ever break me down? Why'd you never build me up? Why'd you make me feel like a piece of shit? Why'd you beat it into me that I'm nothing and no one? And I let it all out, man. And the next day, for the first time in my life, I'm with this woman and I let her put a needle in my arm.
Mm.
And the day after that, I had so many different drugs in my pocket, coke, K, Molly. I don't even know. I got mixed up, so I just dumped it all together into a pile, and I was shit-faced drunk. And I snorted it all. And I went into a psychosis. It was a complete break from reality. I traveled into another dimension where my body was still here. My mind and every other part of me was somewhere else. And I departed, if you will. And I woke up handcuffed to the hospital bed with my clothes torn apart. And somehow, to this day, I don't know who did it. Someone told my mom. And so when I opened my eyes, all I felt was the handcuffs. And I look up and my mother is there. The woman who just lost her husband. The woman whose oldest son, who she pretty much adopted and raised, almost died from a brain aneurysm. And her youngest and only birthed son was laying there in a hospital bed.
Oh, my.
And the amount of guilt and shame and self-disgust that came over me, I did not pick up a drink or a drug for 3,010 days. When I stopped drinking and drugging, it was out of pure desperation and agony and shame and guilt and anger and rage and grief, all of the negative emotions, but some of the strongest emotions. More times than not, people with massive chips on their shoulders with something to prove are the ones who do things that most people will never even aspire to, because we've got something to prove, not something to give, something to prove. And when I got about a year sober, man, because what I did is I created a program for myself. And it was just, I became like, I'm going to show everybody. I'm going to do this, 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 and this every time I hit a milestone where I don't drink. And I'm just going to focus my entire life on making money and proving everyone that I'm worthy and that I can be successful, that I'm not stupid, that I'm not a bum, and I'm going to just dominate. And this was just an angry teenager and a sad and hurt little boy who was doing all of this. And yeah, man, you know, sobriety, when I realized if I'm able to conquer my addiction, what else can I do? And after a year, man,
that's a powerful thing.
there was this fire inside of me, brother, like that was ignited. But like I said, from all of the most powerful and dangerous emotions a human being can have. And I think by the time when I was 31, I got an opportunity to go into, I don't know if I should name the company or not. So I'm just going to say at that time, the second largest software company in the world. And these two amazing women took a chance on me when no one else wanted to. No one wanted them to hire me, but they saw something in me. And they hired me as the only ever manager to go to that company with no college degree. And I had no experience in that marketplace. And I had never led the type of people that I was going to be leading. Everything was stacked against me, but they saw something in me, man. They saw that fire inside of me, that passion that was let out through no longer being addicted to substances. I was still an addict. I was addicted to achieve, to prove myself right and everyone else wrong. Because there was a huge part of me that believed, no, they're right. Then there's this other part of me, no, they're wrong. And within 2 years, I became a director, which was my first executive role there. Within a year and a half from that, I became a regional vice president. Within a year from that, I became an area vice president. And after 7 years of climbing my way up the corporate ladder, I took over all of the entire North American government division. For my organization, I was the number one guy. I was the bottom guy. And within 7 years, I was the number one guy. And it's all because I had something to prove. Nothing was ever good enough. No matter what I achieved, no matter what I did, it was never good enough. But what I did do really well, really, really well, the thing that gave me any peace of mind, any sense of purpose, was the moment I learned how to be successful. I went to everyone I knew and I said, come with me. I don't want to go. I don't want to do this alone. I got this thing figured out. Believe in me. Look how I've turned my life around. I want to take you to the top with me. And I brought in guys from my childhood, man. I brought in my best friend from the army who got blown up in Afghanistan. I brought in guys I went to high school with, guys I went to elementary school with. I brought in people from all different markets, man. And I was just like, let's go crush life together. And that sense of giving, it was the only thing that made me feel good. You know, but again, that was driven by, they find me worthy, they respect me, I'm of value to them, I'm important to them, and they think good of me.
So that seemed to be the ongoing pattern in your life through every one of your addictions, through every one of the times you got successful or became successful or ended up going back to using. Seemed like that was the pattern. So what steps have you taken, or what kind of work have you done to try to break that pattern? Because I don't see you as that now. Just a short time that I've talked to you, it looks like you've done a lot of work in that area. Can you kind of go into that a little bit?
Yeah, brother, absolutely. But I'd be remiss if I didn't ruin the comeback story. So that's who I was.
Yeah, I was gonna get to that. You said
I was the
1,001 days there, so
yeah.
I knew that was coming. So
yeah, man, I was the comeback story. I was an inspiration to everyone around me. It's just like, wow, look how this guy turned his life around. Look how he's just helping people, and like all he wants to do is like build people up, and like look at this guy. And people used to be like, you're the most disciplined person I've ever known. You're the strongest person I've ever known. And on the inside was this massive crack in the weakest foundation imaginable on this massive building that was just waiting to crumble. And, when you have no self-worth, it's really difficult. I can tell you this right now. The key problem in everything that I think you can take away from what I've said so far is I was incapable of receiving love. I was incapable.
That's a big one right there.
And even though I had so much to give, just like my parents, man, they had so much to give. How they gave it, they did what they could. So I grew up and I ended up doing the same thing with and let me say this. I love my ex-wife dearly. She was my muse, man. When I found that woman and I said, oh my God, this just beautiful, majestic woman wants to be with me. I mean, and I felt that a woman like that loved me. Look, man, it wasn't all me. Like, it was like, she was my muse, man. Like, oh my God, she chooses me? And it's like, look, Dad, you were wrong. And so like, I gave everything I could to like, give her this like fairy tale, man. I didn't want her to work. I didn't like, well, it's not that I didn't want her to. I wanted her to do whatever she wanted to do. If you don't want to work, don't work. If you want to work, work. but I want to give you everything I possibly can. Because what I always believed, my belief system was, well, the more I give somebody, the more they'll love me. That was my identity. I will give everything I possibly can to find love. Help me. I need to receive it. I need love. I need to be loved.
Do you still have that feeling in the back of your head, even though, no matter what, that like she's gonna leave me, I'm not good enough. She's one day she's gonna be gone.
No,
Oh, you didn't go.
no, I never thought that she would be gone. No. She loved me dearly, man. She loved me dearly, but I was incapable of it for what it was, because it's not what I needed. And I thought, well, I'll just shower her with more love and then she'll give me what I need. But I didn't know what the hell I needed. Clearly, I was misguided my whole life. And ultimately, man, I built so much resentment towards everybody in my life. Like, it was always there, but it just started to break through, because I'm like, I'm killing myself to serve all these people who I love. Nobody's taking care of me. Why won't anyone take care of me? I take care of everyone. Why is no one taking care of me? I need somebody to take care of me. I felt like my parents never took care of me. I felt like nobody ever loved me. I felt like everyone took advantage of me. I felt all of these things, and it was poor me. And I used to teach people about don't be a victim. The startup I was at, it was amazing, man. It stuck with me. My CEO had this sign on his door, and it said, "No victims." And every time someone would go into his office and complain, he'd print a bigger sign. So by the time it was like 2 years into it, the sign that said "No victims" on his door was massive. And so I sit here and teaching people about don't have a victim mindset. Well, several years of deep, painful work later, the biggest breakthrough in my life was, oh shit, I'm a victim. And when you take ownership and responsibility and acknowledgement and admittance of that, it's like, well, whoa, I'm a victim of myself. I did this. I'm responsible. There's nobody to blame. Just because someone beat my ass, well, I'm the one who's been beating my ass up about them beating me up 35 years ago. Who's the victim? Who's the perpetrator and who's the victim? Me and me. Self-imposed bondage of self. And man, when I let all of those negative emotions overpower any sense of false fulfillment in my life, man, I was so angry. I was so miserable. I was so beaten down. And at this point, I'm starting my own company too. So I'm a vice president. I have 2 little boys, one who's just recently diagnosed with autism, a wife, and I'm starting my own service-disabled veteran-owned government contracting business. Because I said, I'm miserable. Let me just work harder. Let me do things nobody else will do, because that's what I always did. Oh yeah, man. I couldn't face the truth. So let me go achieve. Let me achieve as much as possible to distract me from the pain and the temptation. And man, I was working 20 hours a day, 7 days a week. And when I say working, I'm including being a husband and a father and an executive and a leader and an entrepreneur. That was just everything. There was zero self-care in my life. But long story short, man, I started to, all the trauma from my childhood that I was burying for years and years, saying it can't hurt me. I will overpower, my self-will will overpower all of this trauma. When I started experiencing those things in my marriage and I was looking at my children, I said, I'm never going to raise my children in the kind of home I grew up in. I don't ever want my children to be exposed in that. And I use that as a justification to break up my family. I left. Now, it wasn't overnight. I had a conversation And, I thought it was clear as day. So I justified it. Maybe 2 years before I left, I said, I am so unhappy in this marriage. And if nothing changes, it's going to be the beginning of the end of us. Well, my ex-wife endured a tremendous amount of trauma herself, man. And she had so many issues from her childhood. And I think like we grew up together in a trauma bond. We were a safe place for each other. We were a sanctuary for each other. It's where we felt loved, but neither of us could give the type of healthy love that we never received, man. We did our best. But at the end of the day, Damon, I'm the one who left. I'm the one who gave up. And I used to blame everything on her, man. I did this, I did that, I did this. I suffered for her, blah, blah, blah. Bro, I left. I gave up. I'm responsible. And I started dating someone after I separated from my wife. And that was extraordinarily toxic. I think that was like a twin flame situation. There was such a deep connection, but that connection was meant to show us what we shouldn't be doing and who. And when that happened, man, when it was 2 failed relationships in a row, and I put everything I had left inside of me to once again want somebody to love me. That was it. That I want somebody to love me and nobody does. Next thing I know, I'm on a guy's trip in Germany. All my buddies, because the whole time, man, everyone was like, not the whole time, but throughout the course of the almost 9 years I was sober, everyone looked at me like, dude, look what you've done with your life. Like, you're one of the most successful people I know. You're so disciplined. You really think you're still an alcoholic? Oh, well, I never even thought you were an alcoholic to begin with, Tarek. You really don't think you can control your drinking? And I would be like, no, I can't control my drinking. I control it by not doing it. That's how I control it. And I told my business partners when I started my company, self-fulfilling prophecy, I said, the day you see a drink in my hand is the day everything I have my hand in gets destroyed. Within 3 months of saying that, I'm in Germany on a guy's trip. I had just parted ways with my former company. I got a tremendous opportunity to go to another phenomenal big tech company. And they knew what I did at that other company. They knew the team that I built, the culture, the growth, the capabilities. They wanted me to come over. I said, no, not unless you let me bring my people with me. The best of the best, they got to come. Otherwise, I can't do what you want me to do. They come back, they say, okay, let's do it. We'll stagger them in. And so I took my lieutenants with me, the guys who stuck it out with me, the gals who stuck it out. And we went over there, man, and it was going to be this amazing experience. And I had this phenomenal reputation, and it was new, and we're aligning with this better company. And I called my lieutenants and I said, sorry, I couldn't get you that raise. You're fired. By the way, I got you a new job and I made you double. And so it was amazing. What a time. What a time. And then I went on this trip 3 weeks later. And I'm in Germany at Oktoberfest at this massive party. And, shots come. And I had already knew I was probably going to drink, man. I knew when I got to the airport, I was like, I think I'm going to drink. And the shot comes. Nothing happens that night, man. And I go, I don't even feel drunk. I got this. See, I can control my drinking. Day 2 comes, 3 beers, switch flips. I'm off to the races in Germany to go find cocaine. Completely depart my friends. And Damon, I didn't even come home with my friends. It took less than 24 hours for me to go deeper than I had ever gone into alcohol and drugs. 3,010 days without them. 24 hours with them back in my life. And I went down a deeper hole with a higher tolerance, a higher level of addiction, a higher level of desire to get whatever I wanted, and 1,000 times more money to be able to do it.
Yeah, that's
And
bad combination.
oh yeah, man. And what about the ego I had, brother? This inferiority complex driven egomania. That's what it was, right?
You think part of that is maybe what led up to, because a person doesn't just all of a sudden decide, well, there's some shots here I'm going to drink. There was a few days or weeks or months where you had already lost your sobriety.
Oh, brother, it happened 4.5 years before I physically relapsed.
So you basically were kind of just on a.
Oh yeah, it was on a path to destruction. I had an emotional relapse 4.5 years before my actual physical relapse. I had an extremely traumatic moment that reignited all of the trauma inside of me. Trust issues, just betrayal, like anger, rage. Just, I remember the exact moment that I emotionally relapsed and was on a collision path with disaster. But I worked the program that I created. I created this program for sobriety. Go achieve more. Don't be a pussy. Go work harder.
Yeah.
Go try harder.
Yeah.
Go be more. Go do more. Go give more.
It sounds good.
And guess what? Remember what I told you? I have an addiction and disease of more.
Yeah. It's a way of basically hiding. That's what it comes down to. Covering up what's really
it's
the ugly
stuff.
stuff.
Yeah, you're just digging dirt on top of it. It's like a bamboo plant. You know, a Chinese bamboo plant. You have to water it every single day for 5 years before it comes above the ground. And once it breaks through, it grows to its full potential within 5 weeks.
Wow.
And so 5 years I was watering that bamboo with distraction, with lies. And then when it finally broke out of the ground and I let it out, man, it grew. And I was capable, the absolute most capable of destroying my entire life. And not just my entire life, Damon, the lives of the people who counted on me. You know, and yeah, man, you know, within 6 weeks of coming home from Germany, I was in business in in San Francisco on business. And then I went into my second alcohol and drug induced psychosis on the streets of San Francisco. And it was bad, man. You know, going back to those moments, doing enough work to remember bits and pieces of what happened in those psychoses, man, that was one of the hardest, most brutal things to ever face in my life. But maybe another time, another day, I'll tell you how, you know, those ended up being visions that were messages that were given to me. And as crazy as that might sound, man, but it's another time, another day.
Yeah, we'll go into them. I definitely want to spend, do more with you, because there's so much to this story, and it just, I mean, this was pretty deep, but it just barely scratched the surface. But one of the things I really do want to talk about is, okay, so you're sober now. You've been clean and sober for how long?
Now I'm about 1.5 years sober again.
Oh, that's good. That's good. So, what do you feel like you're doing different this time? What do you feel like you've worked on, and how did you get past those things? Because I mean, there's a lot of trauma there, and it all goes back to your father and your childhood is basically where it's all started. That self-worth.
Yeah,
What
man.
have you done to try to fix that, or make yourself realize that I am worthy? I didn't do that to me. I had no choice in the matter at the time when all of this was happening to me. I just, once I got old enough, I had the choice to continue to keep abusing myself or doing something to myself, hurting myself, depriving myself, or whatever, because of something that somebody else did to you. So what steps have you done? What are you working on to try to, repair that?
Yeah, let me just paint a picture, man. It got so bad, no matter how many times I tried to get sober again, I tried to implement my old program. I know how it works. I did it before. I got more successful than anyone I know because I got sober. I can do it again, and I couldn't. I can do it again, and I couldn't. I can do it again, and I couldn't. I get 3 months sober, relapse, 3 months sober, relapse, 4 months sober, relapse. Because there's one key word I just said over and over. I was the problem, and I was trying to use the problem to solve the problem. My addict mind told my addict mind that my addict mind was the solution to fix my addict mind. I literally thought I knew what was best for me. I'm the one destroying my life, and I thought I knew what was best. Because I never allowed there, and to answer your question, I stopped confusing strength for weakness and weakness for strength. Society tells us men don't ask for help. You go and you do whatever you have to do. You just take it. Just take it. Otherwise, you're worthless. That's not strength, that's weakness. Strength is dropping to your knees and saying, I can't do this alone. I need help. And when I said I want to paint a picture, Damon, it was so bad, brother. I was so bad, man, that I lost custody of my children. I was no longer allowed in the same room with my children without being supervised, and I could only do that for 2 hours a week. My children didn't live in my home anymore. Their beds stayed empty. I could only see them at a Chick-fil-A. And boy, did I hate my ex-wife for doing that to me. You know why? Because I couldn't take any accountability. Who do I think I am to justify how dare she do this to me? I jeopardized my children, and I lied to myself and said I didn't, because it was too painful to admit that I was the problem, that there was nobody else to blame. And when I finally, for the second time in my life, turned to God, only the second time. The first time I begged him to save my life, and he did in a profound way. And the second time, I dropped to my knees right here, Damon, literally right here. And I begged him to end my life. I can't be a father who commits suicide. I don't want my sons to grow up knowing their father gave up. But God, I give up. Just take me, take my life. I don't want to be here anymore. I am lost. I'm lost. I can't. I'm out of control. I want so desperately to stop, and I can't. I'm disgusted with who I've become as a human being. I'm lost in the devil took its hold over me. Just take my life, God. Please, I beg you. I'm begging with all the might in my body for God to kill me. And he did take me, but he didn't take my life. He took control of my life. And I had lost my kids, man. I had lost my reputation. I had lost a fortune that I worked my fucking ass off to build. I squandered it on just nothing but pure sin. And whatever I did have left, it didn't matter. I finally realized, like, none of this matters, man. Like, I will do whatever it takes, whatever it takes. And I risked everything, man. I left my career for the third time I went on leave. You know, I had to go on medical leave 3 times. But this time I told my boss off the record, I said, look, man, I'm not going to be back for a long time, at least a year. You know, you got to do what you got to do. I get it. And I listened for the first time in my life. I truly asked for help. I got out of my own way. I knew I was the problem. I knew I couldn't listen to myself. I knew my first instinct was going to be to resist, to revolt, because I'm a hard charging, stubborn motherfucker. And I had to be completely different. I had to be the complete opposite of who I had been and what I had done to mask, conceal, and bury everything that was the problem, which was unresolved trauma and an inability to admit that I'm the problem. And I went to rehab, man. And for the first time in my life, even though I had already believed in God and started to build a relationship with God, but it was like, you know, I didn't have any healthy example of what it was like to have a relationship with God. You know what I mean? So I had no healthy examples of what true love was. And so I'm sitting in this chapel at rehab, and I just, for the first time in my life, I actually, this right here, this physical Bible, I opened it up to a random page and I just started reading it. And I started talking to God. And I started opening my heart and soul and asking for forgiveness. And the key to all of it, Damon, is one simple thing. I was willing to do whatever it took, no matter the cost. I was willing to risk losing everything to gain the thing I've never had. And that was self-love and a true, genuine ability to love other people and to receive God's love. And to be able to receive God's love is the key to be able to do number 2 and number 3. The only way for me to finally believe that I was worthy was to feel the presence of God and the love in his life, in my life. And the moment I felt God's love is when I finally felt worthy of love. Because it's God. God loves me exactly as I am. Exactly as I am. He doesn't,
you're in
he's
the
not
place you need to be.
He's
You're
not
right.
waiting for me to be better to love me. He's not waiting for me to be a changed man to love me. He was just waiting for me to receive his love. And the moment I received God's love, man, I saw him in everything around me. I saw his hand in everything. My entire life started to change. My whole purpose started to change. My way of thinking started to change. The forgiveness that was pouring out of me, the honesty that was pouring out of me, the truth, the real truth, not a bias, self-preservation version of the truth. And to be cliche, the truth shall set you free.
Right.
There's no truer words that have ever been spoken. The truth shall set you free.
And it doesn't always sound good.
That's your secrets.
Yeah.
No, you're right. It doesn't. But it
doesn't sound good. A lot of it's just it's hard to take. Especially for a lot of people, they can't take the truth, and they cannot see that this is the way it is. So you've got a lot to offer, brother. Sounds like you came a long ways. You've been down in those deep lows, and that hatred of self. Been at those highs where the ego's in charge, and you're running amok, and when you're at that point, you're bound for failure. But looks like you've gone through several different cycles, and sounds like you've got a lot more stuff figured out now. And I think it took having to just completely break down and let all of that go. It's a total breakdown of who you are, and be like, I can't do this. And a realization that you alone can't do it. It takes
No.
it takes something else.
Community, man. Community and a relationship with God.
But in this community that we're involved in, you know, it sounds like you've got a lot to offer people, you know, because I know I see it with friends, people I talk to all the time. They're like, I want to get clean. I'm tired of drinking. I'm tired of this. I hate it. I hate where my life's at. But yet they still go to the bar. They still go and they still, you know, even though they're hating their life, they're hating the way it is. So I know you've got a lot to offer, and you know we're on the same path, and I think you can be very helpful to a lot of people out there. So, do you have anything coming in the future? Do you have any courses, any kind of material?
I do, yeah, Damon. I'm gonna say this first and foremost, man. Um, anyone can get the gift that's been given to me for free. I want to say that first and foremost.
Yeah.
Right? All you got to do is go find a 12-step book club for whatever it is that you're suffering from. But if you're not one of those people who's willing to do that, yeah, I'm developing some curriculum, a process to help at least guide people in the right direction and become open and accountable and create a couple different avenues to get the help that they need. And you know, I'm collaborating with other entrepreneurs right now, and obviously making sure that the most important thing that I focus on is helping people recover from the disease of self. Doesn't matter if you're an alcoholic, a drug addict, a sex addict, a shopping addict, an eating addict. It doesn't matter what kind of ism you have. It's a disease of self. And so, yeah, for now, man, you know, just collaborating. And
How can people reach out to you? How can people get a hold of you?
yeah, right now, man, I'm building my social media platform. It's keeping it 100 for now. That might change, but it's KEYPINIT 100 on IG. If anyone just sends me a DM that says I'm ready or I submit, then they'll hear from me.
Okay. Do you have Facebook or anything, or just Instagram?
Just the IG for now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Coming soon, brother. That's why I'm working with you. It's all happening
Well,
so fast, man. You know, I'd be remiss to say, Damon, 2 weeks ago, I was just talking with God and said, Lord, let thy will be done, not mine. I know what's in my heart, and I know what my path is, but it's your will, not mine. Let thy will be done. And I had come to a place of acceptance that I might go back to corporate America, because I haven't worked in almost 2 years, Damon. The work I'm talking about doing, the breakthroughs that I've had, the changes that I've made, it's because it was the only priority in my life. That's what it took. And so it was, do I go back to my cushy income in corporate America doing something I no longer have passion for? And, you know, God revealed his path to me in very profound ways, man. You know, I was sitting here talking to somebody else that you and I both know, wearing the same clothes. And it was interesting, actually, David, if I might. So this shirt that I'm wearing is from this company called Kingdom and Will. All right, it just says King Jesus on it. And so when I'm having our conversation, I'm about to have the first conversation with Nick. And I'm praying to God and I'm talking, and this shirt wasn't supposed to come until the next day. Well, I pull in my driveway an hour before my meeting with Nick, and the package is there. And so I've been talking about God and Lord, help me glorify you in everything that I do. And I open up the package and I see this shirt, but before I even look at the shirt, this falls out. And it's a handwritten note to me. Now, this is a Christian clothing brand. And it says, Tarek, Thank you so much for putting your trust in Kingdom and Will. May these shirts serve as both reminders of his love for you and as ways to spark conversations about his goodness. Stay encouraged and God bless. And since my heart and mind is open and I look to receive God in everything, and I have been praying, I took this as the answer to my message. I said, Lord, help me glorify you in everything I do. So I said, all right, let me have this conversation with this person. But first, let me put on this shirt. Let me make sure, my Lord and Savior, my leader, my general, my counselor, my therapist is proudly displayed right there. And when this person turns on their camera, their reaction is going to tell me, am I working with the right person or not? And his jaw dropped and he showed me his cross, and bro, the thought of going back to corporate America never came back. I jumped in head first. I made massive investments. I left the old life behind because my faith in God is so powerful. My desire to do God's will is so powerful. My love for God is so powerful. I've talked about true love several times, man. Receiving God's love, that is true love, bro. I have nothing but love in my heart. I have nothing but divine inspiration in my heart, the desire to serve, just to serve with no expectation of anything in return. I'm already loved, man.
I have to say, corporate America doesn't need you anymore. People need you.
Man.
There's a lot of people out there that
you talk
that
about
could use
people
your
doing
help.
God's work.
Yeah.
God doesn't talk to you directly, man. God talks to you through where places God is able to speak, and that's through people who love God and receive God's love, man. And yeah, dude. So I'm not gonna lie to you. I have to wash this shirt every 2 days because I have not stopped wearing it since I got it, and it's amazing, man. So yeah. So I'm just getting started. That was my whole point. 2 weeks ago, the concept of being on a podcast, you know what I mean? Like, I shared a lot of things about myself that in the past, that guilt, that shame, that fear of rejection, I would have never shared this. I wouldn't want people to know the worst things about me. But now, because of the relationship I have with God, the passion that's inside of me, man, how dare I not share that story? How dare I not? If I can stop one person from making my mistake, if I can encourage one person to go down a different path, if I can encourage one person to decide, oh shit, my parents were alcoholics, maybe I shouldn't ever pick up a drink or a drug. Like, who would I be to not do that if I truly love God? And so, yeah, man, everything's happening super fast. You and I met, put the podcast on the calendar, and I'm working on so many different things right now. Like, my whole life is just get on your knees, pray, listen, collaborate, repeat. And it's an exciting time.
You're getting in the right circle.
And I'll give you a clearer picture of the offerings that I have. Okay.
Yeah.
Please.
Well, we're all getting into these circles that have people that really help us become the best versions of ourselves that we possibly can. I know that when you start getting involved with people like you, me, other people that are in our circle, the few people that were on our phone call, you see a whole completely different way of thinking, and everybody's trying to help everybody else, and that's not commonplace in the world. Most people are trying to either make everybody else look bad because they're falling short somewhere, but in this group that we're in, these people that we're involved with, like, everybody all they want is to make the other guy look better. How can I help you? How can I serve? How can I help your business grow? How can I, and that's big. So huge, I encourage anybody to try to get involved with these kind of groups. Find, people like Tarek. So it's very important.
Find people like Damon. David, have you shared your story on your podcast yet?
I haven't.
Buddy, you're okay. Hold on. I get dibs. You're sharing your story first on my podcast.
Well, I get dibs. You better hurry and get one.
Quid pro quo.
I got a lot of people wanting to talk to me now, and as I'm starting to get it out more, I barely brushed on a few things with my book, and now I'm ready to go deeper. So I also encourage anybody that's gone through this, especially you, talk to Mike Falla, talk to the $1 Million Book Agency, man. They're a game changer too. You've got a
I
compelling
plan to,
story.
man. I plan to.
You can help people. So with that, if anybody's interested, you can contact me. You can go to my website. Also, it's the Breakout blueprintdn.com. Join the community. People like Tarek are in this community. A lot of other people, Nick, Santos Donaso, Mike. I don't know. Many people know who these people are, but they're game changers. They're life changers, and they're making huge impacts to the people around them. So, anything else you want to add today?
I'm just grateful, man. And to be honest, at this point, anyone, if anyone does contact me, I'm building things out. So more than likely, I'm just going to point you in the direction of where I know there's a community and resources that are available to you today. The last thing I'd ever want to do is lead somebody down the right path when they're in a place of desperation. So if anyone reaches out on this topic, man, I'll do what I have to do that day to get you whatever kind of help you need. It may not be from me, but I will give you my commitment that I'll try to help you. So again, man, just bear with me. I'm trying to build as I build and grow and execute at the same time. So it's a lot, but it's amazing.
All right, man. Well, it was good talking to you. And for the Breakout Podcast, I'm Damon Nichols, and we will see you guys next time.
Thank you, brother. God bless.